Season 3 is officially upon us, and with the release of this new season, I have decided to undergo the most grueling, the most unforgiving, the most mind-bogglingly insane challenge World of Warcraft has to offer: pugging. More specifically, I have decided to start a Zero to Hero series. I will attempt to go beyond just Keystone Hero and try to reach 3000 IO on a fresh character through entirely pugging Mythic Plus. The rules of the series are as follows. I can't get any help from friends or guildies. All of my gear must be obtained from pugging, and my Raider IO score is not linked to any of my other characters. Last week, I obtained my shiny new legendary cloak, filled up my vaults with M0s and delves, and prepared myself for maybe my worst idea yet. First things first is to pick up our vault piece and run through LFR. LFR, Vault, and Catalyst charges are the only way to get tier pieces for this series because I won't be doing normal raids, so they're extremely important. For this series, I will be playing as a hunter. I decided to jump in as Survival, since I was already somewhat familiar with its playstyle.
You chose poorly.
Unlike the other two hunter specs, Survival is a melee spec that fights alongside of it, rather than at range. This spec is primarily centered around optimizing Tip of the Spear,
Just the tip!
a buff that increases the damage of our next non-kill command ability by 15%, stacking up to 3 times for a total of 45%.
Oh, that's a lot of damage!
Tip of the Spear can only be generated by kill command and some of our major cooldowns: Flanking Strike, Coordinated Assault, and Fury of the Eagle. Managing these stacks is crucial for success as a survival hunter because so much of our damage is baked into Tip of the Spear. I thought the best way to start this challenge was just to tiptoe my way into the chiller side of Mythic Plus by applying to every +2 I could find. To my surprise, I was quickly invited to a +2 floodgate. I greeted my first group with a warm welcome and expressed my gratitude for the invite. I was then promptly kicked from the key, re-invited, and then kicked again. Undeterred, I kept applying for keys until I finally got into a +2 halls. For this group, I reconsidered talking and instead opted for total silence because kindness is dead. Halls is a dungeon that I played when it first came out in Shadowlands. I remember it being one of the easier, more straightforward dungeons. So how hard could it be now at the lowest possible level? Oh, how naive I was. Right from the first pull, 2 things became apparent to me. 1, this tank had no idea where he was going.
Where are you going, soldier?
And 2, this rogue's damage meant it was going to be a 4-man dungeon.
Ooh, that's kind of small. Yikes.
The dungeon starts with the group needing to kill each of 3 shard mini-bosses in order to summon the first boss, Halkias. Halkias has 2 important mechanics: Heave Debris, which leaves ground denial on the floor, and Refracted Sunlight, in which players have to rotate around the boss in order to avoid his insta-kill lasers. Our rogue did not avoid the lasers. I was pretty happy with my performance so far.
Nice.
That was, of course, until I mistimed a harpoon and launched myself straight into a frontal. Normally, this wouldn't be that big of a deal. 1 death isn't the end of the world. But I guess my death was too beta for my pet Fenrir, and he decided he was the alpha now, refusing to be summoned, dismissed, or controlled in any other way for the rest of the dungeon. The only thing he would do is obey kill command, but every time I didn't press it, he would run right back to me. Despite my disobedient pet, the key must go on. Moving on to the second boss, Echelon summons tiny imps that need to be interrupted, killed, and destroyed by the boss's leap cast. After a few more trash pulls, we are already at the third boss, Elise. This boss has a dispel mechanic and a cast that should be interrupted, but also who cares, those are healing mechanics. The main mechanic that we have to worry about is a spirit act that fixates a random player and pulses heavy AoE damage until the spirit is lured into a lantern by the fixated player. Our monk healer did a bit of trolling, but overall a clean fight.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
Before the final boss, there is possibly the most annoying mini-boss, who repeatedly heals up until he has drained all of the souls in the room. The last boss, Lord Chamberlain, has most of his mechanics tied to the statues around the balcony. He flings them around the room at players before teleporting to the center and channeling onto each of them, dealing heavy AoE damage if it isn't intercepted by a player. That would normally be the end of the dungeon, but like I said earlier, our tank had a quirky route, so we had to go back to finish percent. My pet's actions were simply unacceptable, and I decided the only logical way to teach my pet a lesson was to abandon survival and switch to marksmanship, where I didn't have a pet.
Don't you understand?
Marksmanship has a similar buff to Tip of the Spear in their Precise Shots buff, generated from Aim Shot and Rapid Fire. Precise Shots makes our next Arcane or Multi-Shot deal 100% increased damage. In AoE, we weave in Aim Shot and Multi-Shot to deal heavy AoE damage, keep our Trick Shots buff active. And in single target, we replace Multi-Shot with Arcane Shot. After practicing MM Hunter for a bit on training dummies, I started reapplying for keys. While looking through the list, I found a lone paladin with a +2 Ara-Kara listed, begging for help. Having not learned my lesson that kindness is dead, I decided to be a good Samaritan and help him out. Ara-Kara starts off pretty similarly to Halls, with the group having to go around killing each of 3 spider mini-bosses in order to summon the first boss. Because of the open nature of the dungeon, people often like to run all the way to the first spider mini-boss right from the start. Seeing as I had just picked up a spec, my damage was a little low for the first pull. Additionally, with all of the casts needing to be interrupted and the large amounts of AoE damage going out from all the adds, our group quickly wiped. Despite it being half a pull, our tank decided to link damage meters. Who the hell do you think you are? Trying not to think too much about it, we continued on throughout the dungeon for about 3 more minutes before the tank once again linked damage meters. After wiping to the first boss, the tank told us to get good and left.
Bowser!
Sorry, the vamp. At this point, I had some real-life responsibilities, so I decided to take a bit of a break. So, unfortunately, life got kind of crazy since I was in the process of moving last week. Coming back, it is now week 3, meaning I have had sufficient time to gear up and get 4-piece from LFR and our second catalyst charge. My first order of business was to go back to Ara-Kara and reclaim my pride. However, my high hopes were quickly shot down due to a lack of interrupts, leading to a wipe on the first mini-boss again. After barely scraping by the first boss, we made our way through the gauntlet of blood guards to the second boss, a Noobzect, which was nothing short of a disaster. Despite a relatively clean first pull, a poorly placed frontal led to a late fight wipe.
Wait!
I'm going to die!
Triple kill!
Some more poor placement and movement on the second time led to another wipe, all but guaranteeing a depleted key. After some very helpful advice from our tank, we finally downed the oversized beetle and ran through the rest of the dungeon smoothly. But the damage was done. We picked up a less than ideal trinket and had to move on.
Brother,
With a stained record of a failed +2 Ara-Kara. My next dungeon was Gambit, another old Shadowlands dungeon. Despite an early death due to aggro, we were going pretty strong through the dungeon. The key starts off with a Murloc area that can be a bit dicey as low health Murlocs run away and can potentially aggro unwanted packs. However, we made our way through this part with relative ease to the first boss. Hilbrand is a bit of a tank and spank, with the only real mechanic being the intermission, where symbols need to be aligned to the proper order as shown on the middle console before the arena fills up with damage. There's also a beam that will follow players around dealing heavy damage, but ultimately a pushover of the boss. The next area was also a cakewalk, being completed in only 3 pulls. The second boss, Time Captain Hooktail, is no joke though, as she quickly fills up the arena with fire pools. She also continuously spawns adds that are chunky boys. Fixated players need to lead the adds into the tank frontal while they're also being pulled towards the water. Our tank had some spicy movement on this boss, leading to a very close kill. The last boss of Gambit is a whole journey. Soleil requires a lot of coordination and can be extremely punishing. She starts off with a relatively chill first phase, where she summons adds that need to be interrupted and killed before their Shuriken Blitz ability goes off. Players will also need to weave in 4 soaks of the Collapsing Star, and space them out since soaking leaves a debuff that increases their damage taken from it. This mechanic repeats in Phase 2, which unfortunately caused a wipe since we didn't soak fast enough. Phase 2 is where things really heat up. The boss fully heals and begins by casting Hyperlight Jolt. This requires players to run their red line through one of the stars. Each cast increases the damage of the next jolt by 25%, meaning there is a low margin of error for this mechanic. Once finished, the boss is usually tanked in the corner to help players avoid energy fragmentation. Despite losing out on 2-chesting the key, I was top damage and feeling better than ever. We started this season a bit slower than I would have liked, But if there's enough interest, I will absolutely continue this season and either hit 3k IO or die trying.